rotations make the grasping actions of the extender and the crank elements of the 2 and 3 over on it. Okay. So this cam and follower arrangement, which often using a spring load follower, which can provide the opening and closing action of the gripper. So the advantage of this arrangement, what it can say that the spring action should accommodate different size objects over. So whereas the translation finger movement, which might also be accomplished by means of a linkage, which would maintain the figures in a parallel orientations to each other during actuators. Mechanical grippers can also classified according to the types of kinematics used to actuate the finger movement. So in this classification, we have the following types. One to be the linkage actuation, gear and rack actuation, cam actuation, screw actuation, rope and pulley actuation, and miscellaneous. The first one to be the linkage actuation. So linkage actuation is the category which covers the wide range of design possibilities to actuate the opening and the closing of the gripper. The design of the linkage will determine how the input force to the gripper is connected to the gripping force over on it. So this is a diagram which shows the possible linkages for robotic grippers. The next one to be the gear and rack configuration. So actually in the case of gear and rack configuration, we'll have a gear, rack, and gate rail also be over there. Okay. And apart from that, so actually the rack and pinion, okay, which is a linear type of actuator which comprises of a circular gear which engages the linear gear which operates to transfer. So what is the rack? Rack in gears when the path of Dina? It can be thought of as a segment of a gear, okay, with have an infinite radius or some just it should be a straight bar with the gear teeth. So probably the most common application of rack and the path of Dina, it is in automotive steering over on it. Okay. So while you are defining a rack actuator, it is a device which is used to produce a linear actuation movement for a secondary mechanism using rack and pinion gear arrangement. Okay. And when you are saying about they will be converting rotational movement into the linear motion, so it will be a vice versa. So whereas the rack actuator is the device which is used to produce the linear actuation movement for the secondary mechanisms over there. Okay, the rack gear would be attached to a piston or some other mechanism which can able to provide a linear motion. So the movement of the rack would drive two partial pinion gears. So this would turn in, open and close the fingers over on it. The next one to be the cam actuated gripper. So whereas the cam actuated gripper, it is a, so actually the cam actuated gripper with a spring load follower. So they will be used to follow the used to provide open and close actions of fingers. Okay, the spring will be incorporated for forcing the gripper to close. If the cam is moved in one direction, in the movement of cam on the other direction, which causes the gripper to open. So the cam mechanism which is used for finger movement by translation, is generally actuated by a rotation actuators over on it. Okay, and this cam actuated grippers when the path of Dina, it is reciprocating motion of the cam imparts motion to the follower, which causing fingers to produce the cabin action. So that's so actually a common phenomenon is it often using a spring load follower, which can provide the opening and closing action. For example, movement of the cam on the one direction it will force the gripper to open. Movement of cam in opposite direction it will force the gripper to close. Okay. So this might be desirable in a machining operations where a single gripper is used to handle the raw work part and the finish part. So advantage when the path of Dina, it would accommodate different size parts. So next one on the path of Dina, screw type actuation method. So screw type actuation method actually the screw is turned by a motor. Okay, whereas usually it will accommodate by the fingers to be the speed reduction method. Okay, the next one, when the screw was rotated in a one direction Sabina, it will causes a threaded block to be translated in one direction. They rotate in the opposite direction Sabina. Threaded block will be moved in the opposite direction. So threaded block வந்து என்ன ஆகும்னா it will connect it to the gripper fingers, which will cause the corresponding opening and closing action. அதுதான் சொல்லுவாங்க. அதாவது lead screw actuators வந்து என்ன செய்வாங்கன்னா it has a compact form, okay, along with the rotating nut inside the cylinder. So on the motion வந்து which will be constrained within the cylinder, it is a nut that moves. Okay. So the electric screw actuators are self-locking and they will have a minimum number of moving parts around it. Okay. So in the lead screw அப்படிங்கிறது பார்த்தோம் அப்படின்னா it is a kind of mechanical linear actuator which will able to convert rotation motion into a linear motion. Okay. So this process will be taken place over on it. Okay. Next வந்து பார்த்தோம் அப்படின்னா rope and pulley mechanism. So rope and pulley mechanisms வந்து the pulley system வந்து will be might operate in one direction. Might operate in one direction, that is to open the gripper, and the tension device would take up the slack in the rope and they will be having a close the gripper and the pulley system operates in the opposite direction. So based on the thing, அதாவது single continuous rope வந்து will be transmit a tension force around one or more pulleys to lift or move a load. The rope may be a light line or a strong cable. So இது எப்படி work ஆகுது அப்படின்னு பார்த்தீங்க அப்படின்னா, so that is the pulley is a simple machine, okay, which consists of a rope and a grooved wheel. The rope வந்து என்ன பண்ணும்னா it fits into the groove in the wheel and the pulling on the rope which turns the wheel. Okay, usually the pulleys are generally used to lift objects, especially heavy objects. The objects lifted by a pulley, which is to be named as an load. Okay, so usually we'll be attaching the rope first to the bottom of the pulley, then loop the rope down to the wheel on the mobile wire pulley. Okay, so now we have to loop the rope back up to the top stick pulley. So make sure that the rope is fully fitted into the grooves over on it. Okay, so this miscellaneous categories which is used to allow for gripper actuating mechanism which did not logically fall into one of the above categories. So example, we can go for expandable bladder or diaphragm, which would be inflated and deflated to actuate the gripper finger. So whereas the gripper with rotary actuator வந்து பார்த்தோம் அப்படின்னா that is when the actuator is placed at the cross point of two fingers. So each finger is connected to the rotor and the housing of the actuator. So the actuator movement directly produces grasping and releasing action. Next, translation gripper mechanisms வந்து பார்த்தோம்னா, so the finger mixin corresponds to the piston movement without any connective mechanisms between them. So drawback வந்து பார்த்தோம்னா to desired size of gripper because it cannot be grist thing. The pinion and sector gears வந்து connect to the element L1 and L2 respectively. So when the piston rod moves towards left அப்படின்னா, the translation of the rack causes the two pinions to rotate clockwise and anti-clockwise respectively. So the release action occurs when the piston moves the right in the same way. Okay, so by that this topic is over. The remaining thing that we can see in the next class. Thank you all.